Ajax is probably the least likable of Sophoclean heroes. Most people somehow like Antigone, and there's much to like about Oedipus. Ajax is quite hard to like. He has some of the worst lines when he sends Tecmessa off just to shut up because women should be silent. Maybe worse to us than it was to the Greeks, but he clearly isn't drawn as a likable character. Entirely resistant to persuasion by his friends, trying to kill members of the Greek army. Okay, they didn't award him the arms, but still going off and trying to kill them is not the right thing to do. So Sophocles here has given us a really very much not a cuddly hero. The question then becomes, where's the interest? The interest is, well, there's an interest at various levels. One goes back to hero cult. So at one level, if Athenians invest this character with kind of hero cult to be, as it were, then perhaps a cuddly hero is the last thing you want, because if what from a cult hero you want is that he kind of helps you against your enemies, then having this indisputably great fighter, though rather dubious human being, may not be all bad, as it were. But that's only one aspect, and it probably isn't the most important aspect. Within the play, you get a debate at great length, especially in the second half, over his arete, over his prowess. And the reason Odysseus gives in the end for why one should bury this man, even though he has been on a rampage against the Greeks, is that he's Aristos, that he is a great fighter. So the play prompts one to think about what value should one attach to a man who clearly does not fit into the social structures that are set up, but that has something extraordinary to offer, which is that he is a great fighter. And that question is not simply interesting as an abstract question, but it is it ties into various conceptual frameworks. One is one can think about all of this in Homeric terms. So in Homeric terms, this Ajax isn't simply the Ajax of Homer. He is in some respects. So like the Ajax of Homer, he has a difficult time with the gods. So he's at loggerheads with Athena, just as Ajax in the Iliad is the one major character who's never helped by the gods. But no, he is not just the Ajax of Homer. He's above all probably the Achilles of Homer, in that he turns against his own men, and in that he basically goes off in a huff and stays in his tent after not having got what he wanted. Achilles didn't get what he wanted, and he did the same thing. And so one can compare and contrast, and one finds that he is a lot worse than Achilles. I mean, he is a great fighter, as Achilles is, but not only does he go off into a tent, but he also tries to kill the other Greeks. Achilles simply prays that the Greeks may suffer. So there's that whole dimension of comparing, contrasting him to Homeric characters. And then the other direction, there's a dimension of thinking about him in the 5th century. So does such a character fit into a 5th century world? There's one reading of the play which says that basically what's going on, what Sophocles is doing, is he gives us a character who is sort of stuck in a time warp. He is stuck in a Homeric world in which being a strong fighter is what it's all about, but who is incapable of operating in a society in which one needs to submit to a majority decision. Even though it's set in the past, this play portrays the decision of awarding the arms to Odysseus as a vote by the army, which is clearly a 5th century reference. So a character who can't cope with a 5th century type world, and there's a lot in that, I think. But as ever, it's not as easy as that. It's not as easy as that, both because, as I already said, he doesn't actually quite fit into a Homeric mold comfortably, but also because I think it's wrong to say that a 5th century Athenian would have said no to this man. the 5th century too, even though obviously in Athens, even though Athens was a democracy, the 5th century too still had an interest in strong leader figures, in strong military leaders, and indeed in strong civic leaders. And so my guess is that a 5th century Athenian would have watched this man not exactly being fully sympathetic to him, but not either, I think, simply saying, no, we want nothing to do with that. We keep that to the past. So what Sophocles is playing with, I think, is he's trying to evoke a response that sits somewhere between repulsion, disagreement, admiration, and then you put the hero cult layer on top, and you get a play which, in terms of plot structure, is ever so simple. Man dies, gets buried, but which in terms of values is very, very complicated and interesting, because you can look at it through different lenses, through the lens of the 5th century, through the lens of epic society, and through the lens of hero cult.